Thank you, everybody. I'm very, very happy to be here. It's really an occasion, and what you're dealing with, I'm practicing. So, as I said, it's not words, but it's acting. I'm doing things. So I will tell you a little bit, the story, how I see cultural diplomacy in my eyes, how I develop it. So I'm going to give you my little lecture. There are very tools that I know of that are used to governing our world that are considered, and art diplomacy is one of them. Today, we are taking a different look at diplomacy and trying to determine how art helps advance the goals of international relations. Over the past few years, the concept of cultural diplomacy has taken root through the basic concept of using the arts to advance intercultural dialogue is not something new. In fact, it has been at the heart of UNESCO's work from the earliest days. However, with the government around the world finally coming to understand the benefit of bringing art and culture into diplomacy, it is now that we can see a more focused and structured use of art in the context of international relations. Over the past few years, the idea of soft power through cultural diplomacy has helped define how the arts, education, sports, music, dance, and intercultural exchange, among other tools, can be used in the furtherance of nations' foreign policy. This, of course, is a positive development, for as the Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw told us, without art, the credence of reality would make the world unbearable. Culture is a set of values and practice that creates meaning for society. For me, the use of art to transmit values and messages is something that comes from the soul of each artist. Today, I would like to talk to you about 3 projects that I'm working on, each of which I hope is designed to further our shared goal of building peace through art. First, let me talk about Art Camp. This is a UNESCO program I've been involved with for a number of years, which once every 2 years brings together artists from regions in conflict who devote themselves to a common project, developing personal relationship and building the foundation for peace. Most recently, the nations of Andorra hosted a group of visiting artists in the beautiful city of Odino. Artists from 30 countries and representing each of the 5 continents were present. The 10 days they spent together, I believe, helped build the foundations of a new and lasting friendship, new artistic collaborations, and open their eyes and minds to the reality of the things we all share rather than the things that divides us. It's a pity I don't have slides. I didn't bring slides, but next time I will show slides so you understand more. In the work of building peace has to be taken one by one. We have at least started in building peace through art. I remembers the words of the American writer Albert Hubbard, who said that art is not a thing, it is a way. I hope that through our efforts with Art Camp, we have found a way to ensure the art will always be used as a compass leading us forwards to build peace around the world. The second project I would like to talk about is the Tree of Peace. The sculpture is a symbol of shelter, a gathering place, providing welcoming shade from the relentless heat of the conflict that seems to plague our world today. The tree of peace represents my vision of the single element in the nature world, which is rooted in the earth and generates life-sustaining fruit and oxygen. The sculpture brings together three important symbols. The first is the symbol Chai, which I can show you because it's here. You can see the Chai, which represents life in Hebrew. It is the first powerful and vital movement of the sculpture, forming the trunk of the tree of peace as it climbs from its base to the heavens. The second element of the sculpture is the letter Shin. You can see it here, Shin, which is in Hebrew represents Shalom and in Arabic, Salam. The words for peace in both these languages. This letter is symbolized by the branches of the tree, which I see as hands reaching out for peace, extended to the sky as if in prayers. And finally, the universal symbol of the peace and freedom, the dove, is represented as the fruit of the tree of peace. The dove stands ready to take off to the sky and greet the world with a message of God. You can see it all. Well, this is the branches holding hands, and this is the dove. So you have here life, peace, and freedom. For me, it represents freedom. But you have something more here. You have here the crescent symbol of Muslims. And if you turn the sculpture here, you have the crease. So really, in this sculpture, you have all the elements of the three religions, and the tree of peace was inspired by Buddha. When he left his parents, it was a prince, it's an Indian prince who left his parents, and he was sitting, lying 6 weeks under a tree, and the Buddhism came also out of the tree. The Tree of Peace sculpture has been planted at universities and other public places around the world, calling to our conscience in places where people can come together, providing an opportunity for men and women to reflect and talk about peace, making it part of our daily dialogue, for I believe it's only through personal contact that we can truly come to learn about and respect each other as individuals. I hope that in the years to come, when each of you sees the Tree of Peace, as you travel around the world, you will take a moment to explain the symbolism to the people you are with. For without understanding the life, peace, hope, and freedom it represents, it is just a bronze sculpture. But art, as a form of diplomacy, can speak to us and relay powerful ideas, spreading the messages that I hope can be embraced by each of us as we work to create a better world for the future. Finally, I would like to talk about tolerance. If diplomacy is not always able to resolve the issue that separates us, as its minimum, we should acknowledge each other's right to live our lives as we choose and learn to respect each other's choices. This year, we mark the 70th anniversary of the Shoah, the cruel moment in our living memory when tolerance was abandoned, and hurted by and murdered were taken to a level that mankind had never before experienced, and I pray shall never know again. Yet today, as we watch the terrible events unfolding in Iraq, Syria, and in other parts of the world, the stark reality is clear that lessons remain unlearned, and the need for us to teach and reflect on peace and tolerance is again reinforced with an urgency that we have not seen in more than a generation. If art can be put into action to help teach about tolerance, we must employ it as a useful and universal tool. When I began working on the fourth sculpture that I call Destruction and Rebirth last year, I set out to tell the story of generation lost and the ties to their land broken, using the language of art and sculpture. The result is this set of sculptures representing the destruction and reconstruction of lost communities. The first sculpture is entitled Tearing, the second entitled Explosion, the third Interstice, Rupture with Hope, and the fourth Totem, its Renaissance and Reunification. During this year of commemoration, observing the 17th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising and liquidation of the Vilnius Ghetto, I wanted to mark these events with the symbols that bridge the past and the future, and mark the distance between despair and hope. The work I do at UNESCO is about building peace through art. My goal is to teach using the artist's language of drawing and sculpture. When we teach about the Holocaust and other genocide, words simply do not have the power to relay the feelings and emotion that are required to understand this dark moment in history. I believe that sculpture, through its physical form, its tangible mass in space and time, has the necessary strength to transmit these stories to a new generation. I hope that the message that these sculptures transmit, the message of hope and rebirth of cultures and communities in the face of devastating and death, pertains to all people whose communities have suffered pain and have been crushed by force that lack human understanding and tolerance. It is through education that we must counter this inhumanity. Then our work in support of the ideas of UNESCO must be doubted and doubled and again redoubled to bring tolerance and peace to our world. It is by touching these heavy bronze sculptures that we can feel the weight of history and the shape of tomorrow. Then art does serve as suppose in the virtuous path of peace and diplomacy. If through this whispering bronze, the voice of those devastated communities can be heard to convey their lost dreams and their hopes of peace for the future, I shall work until my last breath to make my art speak. If my art can help, if any way to help construct the shared values of tolerance, mutual understanding, respect, and dialogue that are the foundation of UNESCO's work, then I shall take some satisfaction that my efforts as an artist have allowed me to make a small contribution. I count on all of you to do likewise in helping build peace through art for our shared future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Messer, for excellent presentation and giving us some insights as to how, I don't know if art can change the world, but hopefully at least contribute to a world where peace is more likely. I'm happy to take your questions and your comments, and what would be great is if you could briefly introduce yourself, as always, just your name and what country you're from, just so Messer has a sense for the great diversity in the room. This is your time, so really questions, comments, anything. Let's have really a multi-directional discussion. Who would like to go first? Yes.
Hello. My name is Capucine, and I'm from France. And I would like to know how you became an ambassador for the UNESCO.
How I became artist for peace. Well, I was working all the time. My aim, and like an artist, it was really to, through my art, to build bridges. And it's real because it's not words; it's doing things. So I was working many years, and I was contacted by UNESCO, as long as I live in Paris, and they were familiar to my work, some ambassadors. So they asked me to join the group of Artists for Peace of UNESCO. And when I was beginning to work with UNESCO, then came some other ideas, because I'm doing some other things for UNESCO at the art camp that I was talking about, and some other project. But as long to your question, it was my work that appealed the ambassadors and asked me to join the group.
Excellent. Okay, over on this side.
Thank you very much for your speech. I'm Marina from the UK. I just wondered, was there a particular event that drew your attention to the importance of using art as a means of promoting peace? Was there a particular event? Or
I'm sorry.
was there a particular event that was a catalyst into why you became interested in using art as peace, or have you always been interested in using art to promote peace?
If I'm being always, it's a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a way of life, you know.
There wasn't a particular point that you...
No,
thought...
it's always, I was working for peace. It's something which is inside me, and I'm possessed by it, so you can't help. So when you're doing things happening to you, and it was a way of life, really.
Ladies first, and then we'll come back to the front, okay?
Hello, my name is Yara Mwalla. I'm from Syria, and I'm doing my PhD here. My question is, as you said, that you've been always working by art to reach peace. That was the main purpose of your artwork.
Yes.
And then you have been invited by the UNESCO, and you had a big structural organization that would support and help distribute this art or make it reachable for a bigger number of people. I want to know what is the differences between an individual artist who has a goal and the aim and a purpose in life and is working, but individually, alone, and the other situation when he is really supported by a big organization. Which one would be more powerful for the artist to touch the people and to make them understand that the artwork better? Thank you.
Well, it's no doubt, if you are belonging to an organization like UNESCO, it's much more easier for you, because you have really the floor, but you have to give. It's not, they don't say you became artist of peace because you did. Once you are artist of peace, you have to work. You have to give from your time. It's not just a word and that's it. You have to do, I'm doing many things. First of all, the art camp that I was talking about it, and then I'm going to develop it. Next week I'm going to Malta, and I'm going to do 1 year in Andorra and 1 year in Malta, and trying to do Mediterranean Forum with all the problems actually of the Mediterranean. I have another idea, which I have since 3 years. It's creating a museum for women in a Muslim country. So I was beginning in Jordan. I wanted to see the Queen. She accepted it. And then what happened, the political issue. So we stopped our project in Jordan. But I'm trying to do it, and I think it will be done in Azerbaijan, which is a Muslim country. And I think in this country, women are really need education center and museums. It will help them much more. So it means that you're giving a lot of your time. It's not only that they're giving you things, they're helping you, but you have to give of yourself, and you have to like it. You understand? If you're an individual artist, you're staying, and you can. Everything is respectable, even individual artist working in her place, believing in what she's doing. It's important. But if you have and an organization like UNESCO, you are giving, but they're helping you also to speak better and to do, opportunity to do more things. It's a really big opportunity to do things. They're giving and you are doing, and you are giving also. It's that exchange, like everything in life.
Okay, I think you were first, and then we'll come back there. I'm trying to keep track of who is here.
My name's Gamboya Kubu. I'm here for my PhD program.
From where?
From Nigeria.
Yeah.
My interest to know about Artists for Peace. You are doing a very wonderful job. I want to know how you are able to synergize with other artists, more especially in the Sub-African region, to promote peace. Is there any success in doing that from that aim? That's my question.
Well, it's a good question because now I'm working on it. Last week I was with the ambassador of Ivory Coast, and we were talking about it, and I saw the president of Ivory Coast, the wife of the president, and we are trying to do things in Africa, which is a very important continent, especially now. I'm working also very closely with the nephew of Senghor. We are working together, projects in Africa. This is not with UNESCO. This is my private thing, but at UNESCO we are doing a lot of things with Africa, with Nigeria. Also, we have a wonderful ambassador of Nigeria, a wonderful woman. She's also in my committee for the Museum for Women and Education Center. She's a part, and we are doing things in Africa. We are very active in Africa, in UNESCO.
I have maybe a related question, if I can jump in, and then I'll come over to the other side. Regarding Africa and UNESCO, I always think of UNESCO as an organization primarily designed with preservation. You always think of the historic sites here and there. What activities, if any, is UNESCO doing, let's say, to bring art from Africa to Paris? So often, traditionally, let's say, culture diplomacy, Alliance Française will bring French art to Germany. Goethe Institute will bring German art abroad. Are there opportunities where it happens the opposite? Let's say, I don't know if UNESCO is involved with this, maybe even also you could mention a French example, when we see opportunities to go the other way, to bring from Africa to Europe, more or less.
A lot. I can just tell you, I wasn't there, I wasn't aware about it, but I've learned that there was an exhibition, I was abroad, there was an exhibition, an important exhibition at UNESCO, Women in Art from Africa. And the First Lady of Ivory Coast, which I know personally, I know her, and I was really regret that I wasn't there. I didn't know about it. We have so many activities, I even didn't know about it, and it was an important exhibition. And we have a lot, you won't believe, we have maybe every 2 months something at UNESCO going on with Africa, it's really on the map, Africa.
Well, it's very good news, and if I may, I'll just ask you a technical question, because of course the other challenge that I observe, let's say especially the last few years with UNESCO, the funding of course is getting cut and cut and cut. So just as a question, how does work like that take place? Let's say this idea of the women in art, is that totally a UNESCO project? Does UNESCO partner with other institutions? Just a practical question, how does one do that? Because I'm sure it's expensive to bring artists back and forth, etc.
Well, unfortunately in UNESCO we don't have money now. You know why? Because, but this is...
Although maybe the audience does not. Speaking of the Middle East, etc., maybe you could explain why now is actually a more difficult time for UNESCO.
Well, the United States decided not to give more money because of the entrance of Palestine like a country to UNESCO. So when they stopped giving money to UNESCO. So we have our Director General, which is she's an unusual woman, really. And she found some money, and everything is going on. We have all the exhibition. Nothing changed, really. We don't have as much as we had before, but the progress and continue on. And she cut maybe a little bit, but not much. And for instance, all this program from Africa, that most of the countries are paying. It's not UNESCO, but the countries that are preparing the exhibition, they're bringing the exhibition with the money to do it. For instance, even for Andorra, when we had our exhibition of art camp. It's not UNESCO who paid the exhibition. It's the Andorra government who paid the exhibition in UNESCO. So it's always exterior.
No, it's good to know, especially for the students of culture diplomacy, just practically how this work
Yeah.
can take place. I saw a hand here. Okay.
Hello, I'm Chloe from France, and I was wondering if you were adapting your art to the culture you're targeting.
I don't hear you so well. Can you speak loudly?
Does it work?
Louder?
I was wondering if you were adapting your art to the cultures you're targeting. So if you will do the same sculpture in Malta or in Jordan, for instance.
I didn't understand the question. I didn't understand it.
I think what the question is, do you adapt your artwork for the particular culture that you're going into? Or will you do the same project in Malta as you will do in Angola, for example? Or do you adapt culturally to the context that you go into? I think that was the question.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. Well, I'm doing both. It's my work, and I'm continuing my work of what I believe. It's sometimes they ask me, so I adapt myself, but mostly it's things that I believe that I'm doing. So, for instance, my Tree of Peace, it's in 9 places in the world, which are very different. You know, I have three sculptures in American University, like Harvard, Arizona, and Philadelphia. I have in Malta, which is in a presidential palace, in order to commemorate the end of the Cold War, signed in Malta. In Israel, the Hebrew University, and in Palestine, it's in El Quds University, in Andorra. So it's the same sculpture, but the environment is different. And here I'm going to have one in Berlin in the Garden of Nations to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations between Israel and Germany. So it's a really big event. But sometimes I adapt myself also. You know, it's a communication. Everything is a question of communication.
Hello, my name is Radustina Netsova. I'm from Bulgaria. I would like to ask you to give us a little more information about this project related to women and art education in Muslim country. It really sounds great. Please tell us a little more.
Yeah, you know, it's a project I have since. It's a project I have since 3-4 years already, and I think it's important. The Muslim countries, it's very important. We need to help women. They need in these countries. So I thought first of all about Jordan because it's really in the middle of the Middle East, and it's. I knew also the ambassador of Jordan, so it was easier for me. And we have it's UNESCO project, so we have many ambassadors which are on the board. And then what happened, you know, it fell because of what's happening in the Middle East. But I didn't want to leave the project because Center of Education and collection of art for women, a place, a house for women, I think it's important. So as the First Lady of Azerbaijan, she's Ambassador of Goodwill, and I have some, and it's really a country of tolerance. They like the idea. So now I'm working on it. And I hope it will move on from there. From September, I'll try to see the First Lady, and I hope we will continue. But it's a very interesting project.
Okay, let's continue. Additional questions, comments? This is our chance. Don't be shy. Okay, Darnell.
Thank you for your presentation. I was certainly art plays a great role in our history as humanity. I was trying to think of what sculptures or artworks had influenced me and motivated me in the context of peace. And there was one thing that really stuck out. And that was Picasso's famous painting of Garnica. And I was just wondering, what were your impressions, or is there any one artwork that perhaps motivated you or struck you as being iconic or demonstrative of peace? You got me?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Can you? I
Uh-oh.
didn't. It was very. I know.
Okay, let me try again.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a piece that had motivated me in my life.
Yeah.
And I thought of several, but the one that stood out the most was the piece from Pablo Picasso,
Yeah.
Garnica.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm wondering, somebody had asked a similar question before in terms of motivation, what drives you? And I was just wondering, are there any particular pieces, you know, as with Garnica that may have...
Of course.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about a couple of them, yeah.
All when you see Garnica, when you see Garnica, this is really there's something which it's breaking. It's so important. And this, when you see this destruction, and you have all over. You have many. Even here, when I entered and I saw the world, when I entered to institute and asked who did it, nobody. But you know, there are many arts, but this is a witness of a period, witness of a horror. I'm talking about it, but I'm trying through my bronze to go on and to continue to think about the future and about hope. Some of my work is about this horror, like Garnica and destruction, and I'm showing it like the fourth sculpture. But most of my work is really something optimistic, more about reconciliation, more about the future. So this is not the question?
Yeah, just a comment, or just a further question. You talked about being positive. Are you saying that Garnica doesn't some kind of way project something positive?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Okay, of course, it's important because people have to know about it. Like you go around here in Berlin. Today I was traveling, going on in Berlin, and they showed me all the memorial, all the things. People have to know about the past. People have to know about the tragedy that happened. It's a part of our life, but also a part of our life is the future, the optimistic. We have the past, we have to know about it, but we have to build the future. This is my role. It's what I think and I believe.
Hedva, you mentioned the Berlin Wall as you entered. That's actually a small tribute to a German artist. His name is Günter Schäfer. He's one of the few Germans who, when the wall came down, didn't go from east to west, but went from west to east, just from his fascination of actually everything that had taking place. He took many of the famous photos that you can now buy as postcards of people jumping over the wall, and he actually painted the biggest portion of the Berlin Wall, which you can still see today if you go to the East Side Gallery. I'm not sure if you all know about this. It's a piece called Vaterland, where he actually has the Israeli flag superimposed with the German flag, and his goal there is to try to show the solidarity between the two. These two nations, which on the one hand have so many reasons and areas why there's a distance there, trying to show the solidarity. What's fascinating about it, he was actually on the cover of Time magazine in 1996 because of all the controversies that evoked. The neo-Nazis did not like this at all, and they would actually destroy this part of the wall. I think it was in total 37 times, probably the number has gone up, and he would restore it 37 times, and it was actually this conversation a little bit between these sort of small fascist groups and he. So it was very interesting to see how a piece of art, even today, back and forth, really this fighting. So just in terms of the Berlin Wall, there's a lot of fascinating stories. I'll have to get you together with Günter Schäfer. Yeah. He can give you a very interesting tour of the Berlin Wall as well. But I wanted to just maybe zero in on the question that Darnell posed. It's an interesting one. I think it's a very personal question, which you didn't answer directly, although maybe there is no direct answer. No, the question was, was there a particular piece of artwork that moved you personally, and you really say, wow, that really inspired you to continue on your work? I'm sure there were many pieces of art that did that. But just, in case there's one maybe that you wanted to mention also to all of us, because we have a lot of generations here, I'd be interested as well. I'd also be interested, someone else asked the question, what was it initially that really drove you to have this personal dedication to peace? If there was a particular moment, maybe there wasn't, but from our conversation earlier, I think there is.
Yeah, it's very interesting, my personal.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that was what they wanted to.
I will tell you all about my personal experience. Well, first of all, my parents it's very personal. I'm coming from a family that my parents were in Auschwitz. both of them. So it's something that you live in your childhood. It's something that you are aware. You're aware about wars. You're aware about suffering. When you see your mother, that she's still sick because of that, and I was the only child, so I was suffering with her. So this is suffering which it was in my childhood, and this is one of the reasons that I was trying to think about war, and I was also born in a country where we were talking about wars all the time. Then I left to France. My life is in France, and it's completely another mentality. But I'm bearing with me the suffering. I was bearing with me all the time the suffering of the Second World War, of the history of my parents, of the country that I was born. And then I said to myself, well, you have to dedicate, not you have to, you're an artist. So for me, it was so natural to dedicate myself for art and to show through my art, the suffering, but the resolution, the future. I'm thinking all the time about the future. I'm thinking about the good things, that why we will build peace that can happen to us. This is my aim. I don't think the past is here, it's in me, but the future, it's something which I really trying to reach more and more, and to think how we can help that all things won't happen again. And I believe, as I said already when I was reading, that through my sculptures, through the things, when you feel it, when you see it. I was working with students, which is very interesting experience in Poland. With my fourth sculpture, I put them in papers, and they were drawing. And they could understand really the suffering out of the sculpture. They were drawing. When you draw things, it's another experience, even if you don't know to draw, but you're trying. And because things are coming inside you, you have to. So they were sitting there drawing, and they were thinking, and I was explaining to them. And this is a very interesting experience, make students working on sculptures and understanding things. And when you touch the bronze, you feel the things are coming to you. It's not words. It's important, very much words, but it's not as much as seeing and feeling and touching things. This is another experience. So this is my personal experience who made me, I was always an artist, but an artist with conviction, an artist that trying to bring a better life through what I'm doing. I'm trying, it's very difficult, but it's another language, it's another tool that we have to use. I think everything we have to use in life. And this is one of the opportunity to do it.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And I think definitely that gives us much more clarity as to, I think, many of the origins of the great inspiration and dedication that you've had. Any other questions or comments? Again, I want to make sure as many voices are heard as possible. This is our chance.
No more questions?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Yorgos. I'm from Greece, and thank you for your speaking, for your beautiful speech. I would like to ask you that all of us are both blessed and lucky to live in an era without any major war between big countries. And my question is, for many politicians, this is the pass by from a Rubicon, because they believe that we start a period with no wars, with no great wars between the nations. And I would like to ask you if you believe that we have avoid all this suffering, all these problems, or the war as a problem for the nations. Do you believe that we have avoid this thing? No.
Look what's going on now. Look what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, of course, but there isn't any great war between.
But still, it can be, yeah.
Yeah.
We are living in a very, very tension period. It's a very, the war that's in the Middle East, what's going on with the Daesh, with ISIS and all this, it's very dangerous for us, for Europe. I think the people doesn't realize how it can be dangerous. We didn't avoid anything for the moment. We avoid for a period. But we have to be careful what's going on now. We have really to be careful. Because if you have people who are I don't say about killing, it's terrible what's going on, but destroying culture. You know, this is what they're doing. Killing people, destroying culture. This is the worst. So we have now, these days, we have to be aware that we live in a very dangerous period. This is my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional questions or comments? Or? Yes? No? Or? Okay.
Coming.
Well, as a Vietnam veteran, I'd have to say I always tell people that although I'm a Vietnam veteran, this is the worst I've ever seen it. In terms of potential, in terms of the actuality of armed conflicts all over the world. If you add them all up, it's staggering, you know, the potential for mass destruction. I mean, the increase in the precision of weapons, the increase of actual, they're renovating the nuclear weapons right now, you know, on all sides. And so that kind of like struck a nerve with me because I always say that even though I experienced war myself, I feel very uncomfortable right now. I think it's important what you said. Yeah. The other thing that really impressed me, impressed is the wrong word that moved me, was the fact that your parents were survivors of Auschwitz.
Yeah. And
that in and of itself is a very, very interesting topic. I hope we're going to be interviewing her, but not necessarily about that, but about your life and what have you. And thank you. There again, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darnell. No, we will do a few little recordings afterwards, not necessarily an interview per se, but we wanted to ask her a few questions just for the camera. What is culture diplomacy? What is the importance for culture? So we will continue the conversation there. I had maybe one question for Ms. Sarah, but before I ask it, are there any other comments or questions? I don't want to leave anyone out. Yes, okay.
Thank you again. Actually, I have a question about, like now with the situation in Syria, we have 7 million refugees around the world. And a lot of them are children. And I'm just, like, I think that it's very good and important question to ask you personally because you have this purpose in life to do art for peace. How do you think art can help the children? How can we, who works on the cultural arena, help the refugees, especially the children, through art to touch their identity again, because they have really deformed identity at the moment and it's really risky. They're really between the monsters and the other monsters, so they're really
terrible.
They're forced to move in a dramatic ways. Like just 2 days ago, I went to one of the Heims here, and I met a family that I thought that they are a very lucky family, but apparently, when I heard the whole story, I couldn't stop crying. I mean, it was very, very dramatic, although they are one of the luckiest, and they consider themselves very, very lucky.
Yeah.
So I thought at that moment, how can I help? I mean, there's a lot of Heims, there's a lot of children in these places, and I think that art and culture can help. I just still didn't figure out how can we touch them again with some love and some humanity through art. So maybe you can.
I think you're so right. You're so right. Because we don't understand how lucky we are with all these poor people, what's happening now. It's a tragedy. And most of us are not aware of the tragedy, especially these poor children. And I think we have to do things for these children. We have to arrange schools, to make them work art, to make them, to make classes. It can make them happy. If they will draw, if they will build things, it's make them, to show them another world and to take them out of this tragedy, because these children went through a terrible moments, and they have to see, we have to make a program for them, schools for them. We have to do it. This is our really, for all the refugees, this is our obligations to help them. This is something we should do through art. It's very important, and you're absolutely right. That's something we should do really. And it's a point even through, to make classes for children, to make them, I would like to come and to make them working on some other artist, to give from the time. It's important. We have to give from our time for our possibility to the others. We have to share it, and we have to help. This is the most important thing, to help the others.
That's actually a great lead into the final question I wanted to ask you too. Maybe a two-part question. First of all, for those of us who aren't as familiar with the institution of Artists for Peace or even Goodwill Ambassadors for Peace for the UN, first question is, what contribution do you think, or what is the most important contribution that you think can be made by such ambassadors of peace, Artists for Peace for the UN, is the first question. Second question related to that, what responsibility do you see for civil society when it comes to supporting the UN? Because so often in the media, you always see criticisms, the UN doesn't do this, the UN can't do that. What responsibility do I have as a citizen, and do I have a responsibility for supporting the UN and for actually trying to contribute myself, whether I'm a high school teacher, an artist, or a lawyer? So those would be my two questions. I'd love to hear your perspectives.
Well, I'll ask the question of the two. I don't know, what is your name? Yara. Well, this is perfect. This is exactly what we have to do, first of all. We have to do it. It's a must. Even here, to organize schools for these children, to go and see them. If there are refugees here in Europe, if we have to be where all the governments in the countries that they're living, to help them, to do a program for them, that they have to go off this trauma, these children. We have to teach them with psychologists, with art, we're giving them lessons in art, all this trauma. We have to do it. It's a must. And what we do in UNESCO, UN, we have a lot of programs for women, for children. Most of our ambassadors of goodwill and artists, we are making concerts, concerts going all over the world. For instance, Forrest Whitaker, the actor, the film actor, is going to Africa. We're talking about Africa. He's going to Africa. He's making many programs there. Herbie Hancock is giving concerts a lot. I'm just giving examples. All we are doing from ourselves, we're taking our time, we're going, we're traveling, and we're going to see people in Africa, in Asia, all the places where there's a need. And all the concerts, for instance, Gergiev is giving concerts. All these artists that, are doing things. Most of the artists of United Nations, they're doing things for the others, and they have a program. Everybody has this particular program. I have my program, as I explained already. Some others has another program. And sometimes our program joining together. But this is our aim and issue.